Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Master Your Mental podcast. If you are new here, my name is Paris, and I am the creator and host of the Master Your Mental podcast. I'm so happy to have you here to tune in and hear my amazing guests and I describe the ways we can leverage and shift our mindsets to take the best possible care of our mental health. I launched the podcast as a way to motivate, inspire, empower, and educate people on these interesting topics. My background and passion for this all stemmed from the field of psychology. After completing both my BA in psychology and my MBA in healthcare administration, my passion for mental health only continued to grow. As a result of this, I launched Master Your Mental to bring more awareness, tips, and conversations to the table about these topics. You guys might be wondering, what does the mental stand for? Well, it stands for mindset, engagement, nutrition, talk about it, accountability, and love yourself. These are all the building blocks that make up what Master Your Mental is all about. If you would like to learn more, become a guest, or connect, feel free to reach out to me by shooting me a message on any one of my social media platforms you guys can find in the link in my bio on my Instagram at Master Your Mental. Now, let's get into the episode, guys. I'm so excited for this episode because this is something that I'm always trying to work on, and I really need to work on more. And you can see the title. We got Setting Healthy Boundaries this week. And I'm not alone. I'm bringing you on somebody in here in a second. But before I do that, I want to say thank you to you guys for being here. And the number one way that I am most appreciative of you is leaving your feedback for me. And you guys do that by leaving me reviews on Apple Podcasts. And I actually have one in front of me that I want to read off for you guys that says, "Interesting listens, 5 stars. I really enjoyed listening to Paris's podcast. She is insightful and asks great questions. I follow this podcast and enjoy so many of her guests. So thank you for that review. Really, really appreciate it. And again, super grateful for you guys for leaving those reviews. And if you haven't already, you can definitely head over, if you're there now, to Apple Podcast and leave me a 5-star review and rating if you would like. Just share your thoughts and what you take away from the episode. And I look forward to seeing that. But I'm excited to get into this topic because setting healthy boundaries is something that we can apply to so many areas of our life, with our relationships, with our work, what we do with our time, our habits, our thoughts. Setting boundaries, healthy boundaries with your thoughts when you're getting bombarded with so much going on where it's stressful, overwhelming, and you tend to kind of get on a negative loop. Like I know I definitely do for sure. So always trying to work on that and bringing you somebody who is going to be diving into, of course, her story and tips and tricks of how you can apply this into your everyday life to help with setting those healthy boundaries to really make the best use of your time and have a great life, which is all what we're aiming for here with the show and the podcast, of being able to feature these tips, these solutions, and this advice to really have a great outcome for our mental health, how we're feeling, and all of these different things. So can't wait to get into it. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Master Your Mental podcast. We are talking all things setting healthy boundaries with shadow work this week. Excited to be speaking with my lovely guest, Nancy Pickard, who is a life coach and best-selling author of Bigger, Better, Braver, here to dive into this with us. I'm excited for you guys to tune in and have some takeaways from Nancy's story this week on boundary setting and how you can implement these steps into your everyday life. So without further ado, welcome, Nancy, to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like we planned this a while ago. So
I know. I'm so happy to have you here and can't wait to get into this with you. There's so many amazing points that we're going to touch on, and I can't wait for you to kind of dive into all the details behind that and just share a little bit more of your story and experiences with everybody. So it's going to be super, super fun. Before we do that, I want to ask you this question to kind of kick it off. So if you can kind of tell us, what is the number one thing that lights you up in this life like nothing else?
This sounds so corny, but it's my grandkids.
No, I love that.
Yeah. It's It's such an example of unconditional love. And I have 4 and they're young. So it's just amazing.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they really do light me up.
And you have 2 sons, right?
I have 2 sons, and one son has 3 kids, and one son has 1 kid. And thanks for remembering that. And I have to tell you, like they grow out as they get a little bit older, but the younger they are, the more they want to FaceTime just for nothing. And so the almost 2-year-old, he must call me 3 times a day, so it's heartwarming.
Oh, no, that's amazing just to see that because that just had that connection with them and just be so close in that sense and have that relationship. Because you're so right. I mean, having 4 grandkids, like that's amazing because I know just being able to have that relationship with them and just kind of have those FaceTime calls and like it definitely could change, with time for sure. So that's awesome that I love that you bring that up and just having that component of family is a really strong theme because that kind of ties back into support and just all the different things that we're probably going to touch on today. But I want to ask you about your story too, and just how did you get into the work that you're doing and things that you're doing to serve people and just even writing your book? Walk us through that. I'd love to hear that.
Okay. So I've been a coach for 10 years.
Mhm.
So I've been a master coach for probably 8 or 9 years. And that's just a level of how many clients you've had and how many certifications you have and all of that. And I mentor other students to become coaches. But before that, I owned a personal gym
Mhm.
and I was, wife and mother and 2 boys and everything that comes along with that and running the gym. But when I got divorced, it was totally a shock for me. I was married 26 years. It blew me out of the water. I did not have the tools I have now. And I just wanted to fix that picture. I didn't feel safe by myself. And I'm not that woman anymore, I might add. So there was a lot of growth that had to be done. And I got into it later on. I was in another relationship that I was engaged and that one fell apart. And then I realized, wow, there is just something here I'm not learning. It can't just be the men I'm picking. And I need to figure this out because I don't want to be here a third time.
Mhm.
And I actually got myself a Healing Your Heart coach and shadow coaches. So I started to be coached in exactly what I wanted to become a coach in. And so that started my journey all the way back then. And, I've got a growth mindset. So I started out and I just kept adding certification after certification. It's like, how many tools could I have in my toolbox or how many arrows could I have in my quiver? And I just I'm not done. Like that's a big, important part of my life. And because you know what, you'll get a client and I'll think, oh, I've never really dealt with that subject before. Not that I can't help them, but this is like the universe saying this would be a good place to get more information from. So that's all that. And then when I was turning 60, I thought, oh my God, it's such a disgusting number. And I have to like prove to myself I've still got it. And so I decided I was going to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And by the time I actually found the right outfit to do it with, and I did it with Team in Training for Leukemia. So I raised money and I was training and I really overtrained because I was a trainer. So I certainly knew how to train. And so I went, I rocked it. And I originally thought I was just going to write a book on what's your Kilimanjaro, like what does that mean to you? And even maybe just a how-to for older women who want to do such a thing. And then I realized that, the only people that are going to read that book are people who want to climb Kilimanjaro. So they're not going to put together all these great coaching tips. And so then I switched it around and I made it a how-to book. So it's really a great self-help book so that people who can't afford a life coach can still get the benefits of going through my process and doing all the work and making changes in their life. So basically I have the book, I have the audio, I have an evergreen course that's very inexpensive to buy. It's like I do Zoom group coaching. I have every level with that book separate from all my other coaching so that there's something for everybody and nobody has to be left out of being able to get the benefits of the work.
I love that. Oh my gosh. And just hearing the excitement from you from like getting into that and like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and then getting into shadow work. And that's such an interesting topic. I'd love to get into more of that with you. So, like, how did you learn about shadow work and what has shadow work done for you personally?
So I'm a Debbie Ford coach. I'm actually also now Nancy 11 life coach. And both of them are immersed in shadow work. And so no matter what you come to me for, I will help you uncover the disempowering beliefs that are in your subconscious that you're not aware of that actually are keeping you from getting the thing you want. So as children, an event happens, we're not emotionally mature enough to understand it. And subconsciously, we just make a meaning. I'm broken. I'm stupid. My voice doesn't matter. My needs don't matter. I need to be perfect to be loved. I need to stay small to be safe. All of these things, they are formed to keep us safe. And they do keep us safe until they stop. So they keep us safe as children, but at some point, they start keeping us small and they just cost us instead of help us. And because you don't know these beliefs, because they're in your subconscious, you don't know that they're keeping you small. So you just know, I say I want this, but what I'm experiencing is this. I say I want to move. I say I want to be in a long-term relationship. I say I want a new job. I say I want to find what I'm passionate about. I say I want to lose 20 pounds. I say I want to climb Kilimanjaro. I say whatever you say, but you're not getting. It's because of the beliefs that you're not aware of. When you uncover them, you get to see how they saved you as a child, what they cost you now, what they cost you as an adult, what they're still costing you. And then you get to give yourself a new empowering belief that supports the vision and the goals that you're going for. Because once you uncover them, they've lost their power because now they're in the light and they don't really make sense anymore. Oh, wait a minute. I am safe alone. Or wait a minute. My needs do matter, or my voice matters, or I don't have to be perfect to be loved. I don't have to twist myself up in a pretzel to be digestible to you. These are all the things that we do because we don't know that we're doing them and that we don't have to be doing them.
No, and I love that. And every time I talk to everybody, I'm always writing everything down to make sure that I can able to be sharing this with everyone after. And I love that you kind of get into talking about the beliefs component, because especially when it comes to setting boundaries, right? When you tell yourself that you can't do that, and especially when you talk about people pleasing and different things of that nature, and then like not being able to have that ability to think that you can do that, right? That I can set this boundary, that I can say this, that I can do this, and you can kind of lean in more into yourself. So I'd love to ask you, like, with that process of setting boundaries, what does that look like for you and the people you help with that?
Great question. So, first of all, if you have those disempowering beliefs, my needs don't matter, my voice doesn't matter, you're going to have more difficulty setting boundaries because if your needs don't matter, then how can you ask for what you need? Right? So, the first thing in setting boundaries when I work with people is to help them uncover the very beliefs that are keeping them from setting beliefs. And some people even have the belief if I ask for what I need, he'll leave me. Right? If I show who I am and I ask for what I need, they won't love me anymore. If they know the real me, they won't love me. These are all things that are inside of our minds that aren't really true, but it's still the way we see it. So I help people, number one, figure out what boundaries they need. So any place that you're feeling overwhelmed or angry or disappointed or ashamed, any of those kinds of feelings, that's a red flag that your boundaries are being crossed. So if you're in a relationship, whether it's personal or at work, and you're in overwhelm, you're having boundaries that are being crossed. If you're in a relationship and you feel very disempowered or disrespected, your boundaries are being crossed.
Mm-hmm.
If you're afraid to ask for what you need, this one is tricky because your boundaries are being crossed. But in all of these situations, by the way, nobody can cross your boundaries but yourself. And I'll get into that and I'll explain that in a moment. But here's the thing. People are not mind readers. We think that they are. We think we have this misconception that if he loved me or if she loved me, he would know what I want. Well, hello, that's not true. If you don't make your needs a priority, you can't expect somebody else to make them a priority. If you don't know what your needs are, how are they going to know what your needs are? So that's the first major hurdle, is to figure out what it is you need, what is tolerable and what is no longer tolerable.
Mm.
Where do you end and where does somebody else begin? I mean, especially I watch relationships and people can be so codependent.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. They don't think they can, I can't go there, or I can't take a vacation alone, or I can't ask for that, or, it's baloney. So codependency should be like this, where if one person comes off, the other person still stands.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, it's like this. And when one person backs off, the other person falls down. So you've got to be really careful. Two people are not like, oh, we're so close. Two people are still two people.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be individual and you need to have your own life separate from the people in your life. And I think that's part of what happens, is that people lose that ability and then they get afraid and they think, I will tell you, I used to think I was so strong when I was married and I did like all these amazing things because I was half of a whole.
Mm.
The reality is I'm whole all by myself, not because I had a man that was bolstering me up, because the reality is I did all the bolstering anyway. That wasn't the other way around. But in my mind, I didn't feel safe alone. Now I had a partner. Now I could do all these magnificent things. And I just didn't have the tools to know I could do magnificent things all by myself. That was the greatest lesson I've learned in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, I love that you bring that up. And I love that you also talk about the fact of the mind reading thing, right? Because thinking that, especially when people who you're very close with or family or whatever relationships, whatever it is that you're very close to, thinking that they know your personality or different things like this and how, maybe when they act or do something that you're not expecting, like, what, like, how could they not know this? And like, I love that you bring that up because that's really a big thing. And then also codependency with setting boundaries. And I love how you also make that mark of two with being able to set that boundary and not knowing what yourself and how to communicate that, then thinking, oh, this person will just know, like,
right.
that this is, the line, or this is.
Yeah. If you loved me enough, you would know.
You would know. Yeah.
So what happens, have you ever tried to put a beach ball into the water in a pool and you push it down and you push it down, you push it down. And the next thing you know, it explodes. It comes flying out sideways. Well, that's what happens with our needs. We don't ask for what we need. We don't ask for what we need. We don't ask for what we need. And all of a sudden, in a totally inappropriate way, with much more energy than the experience calls for, you're ranting. Nobody cares about me. My needs are never being met. Why am I doing X, Y, and Z? What are you doing for me? And the person's looking at you like, whoa, I just asked you to could you pick up something at the store? It's so when you don't make your needs a priority or you're trying to be a conflict avoider, you really end up causing conflict.
Mm-hmm.
I have news for all you conflict avoiders out there. If you think you are avoiding conflict, you're causing it.
Mm-hmm.
Just from that example, it comes out in a very inappropriate way. And all of a sudden you explode and you cause conflict.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point too, because when you're talking about when you're avoiding something so much, to think that it's saving or protecting something or making something safe, then it actually makes it worse because then you're not able to communicate what this is. And it's like, oh, I'll just do it later or I'll figure out how to do it. Do you think that that somehow has something to do with love languages or communication styles? Or what do you think is at the root when it comes to different scenarios and not being able to express your needs? Is it dependent on like the personality or what do you think
Well, I think there's fears always involved. Disempowering beliefs and fears are always underneath there. And in terms of love languages, it's more about communicating what your love language is. If you say to somebody, listen, I need physical touch, I can't like hop into bed with you. I need there to be some like warm, loving physical touch. Somebody else might say, I need you to say nice things. I can't like hop into bed with you because you haven't made me feel safe with saying nice things to me and being warm and light and. So it's more about communication styles. We all have our own love languages, and your love language does not have to be my love language. But if I'm a good partner, it's both. If you're a good partner, you're going to let me know what your love language is. And if I'm a good partner, whether I need that myself, I'm going to give you what you need. You may be somebody whose love language is gifts. I may not care at all about gifts, but if you care about gifts, I should give you gifts. So communicate, it all comes down at the end of the day to communication for sure.
Yeah, communication, is the root of understanding what those languages are, right? And like being able to have that to say, this is something that's important to you, but then also the other person, like you just talked about, right? With gifts, you might not care about this, but the other person might. And then having to understand that and saying, okay, this is what's important to them, but it's not necessarily to me, but how to deliver that over to them. And then also kind of getting into the different layers with shadow work. So do you think that's kind of tied to when you're talking about someone who's trying to, okay, I'm going to learn about shadow work and try to uncover these different pieces to understand why I react certain ways or respond to different things in certain ways? What is at the core of that, or what is at the root of that? So do you think it has also kind of with your parents, right? So with your mom or your dad, what do you think is at the root of what develops your shadow to do that work on?
Well, there's a lot that goes on. So it can be one instance, something happens and you make a belief about yourself. That belief is your shadow belief. Then you have an underlying commitment, and that commitment is the strategy that you've developed also in your subconscious to keep that belief alive. I have a belief I'm not safe alone. My underlying commitment is to never be alone, to be a good girlfriend, to be a great female friend so that I'm never alone. So that's my commitment that goes along with the belief that I made. Now, that was actually mine. I put myself on fire when I was 5 years old. And so I had the shadow belief. I didn't know until I was 50 that I'm not safe alone. But it made so much sense when I uncovered it. You could have an alcoholic parent. You could have an abusive parent. You could be molested as a child. And then you're molested as a child, you unsubconsciously make the belief, I need to be invisible to be safe. You grow up, you're 300 pounds, you think you're invisible, but the world can see you, but you've made yourself so unattractive that you think that nobody's going to bother you now. Right? It's more in your mind than anything else because that's the way you feel about yourself. But these beliefs come across from our mothers and fathers, from our teachers, from children. I can't tell you how many clients have shadow beliefs from being beat up from their siblings or being like told that they're useless or they're ugly, from their siblings. I have a very close friend who's got two brothers who really made her believe she was an ugly duckling. In her whole life, she never felt like she could attract a man or that she was pretty enough. And, I have people who have been sick as children, and that was the only time they got love. I had a client who had 26 surgeries in her marriage, 26 different kinds of plastic surgeries because the only time her husband showed her love was when she was recovering from a surgery.
Mm.
So for her, love and life meant if I'm sick, someone will take care of me.
Wow. And just, I love how you kind of laid out all of those examples of what that kind of looks like in different scenarios. Because when you're thinking about, I love how you have the underlying belief that is formed from different things in childhood or experiences that you had with your siblings or people that you're in relationships with too. And having that thing where you're talking about, this is what it was. And then feeling, oh, I only have value when I'm in this state, when I'm recovering or when I'm sick or when I'm, in this, I have to be in this state. I can't be just me. I have to be this. So I love that you tie that together because that really helps to form the root of this. Where did this come from? How did this develop? And then you can go and start to tackle that and then really give steps to overcome it and different things like this. And I love how you also outlined your example of shadow work within the marriage and then sharing that as well. So what for you, right, with the work that you've done, what has that process looked like for you to tackle the belief that you used to have, your shadow belief? And what did you do to overcome that?
Well, that particular shadow belief, because unfortunately we have many.
Yeah.
But that particular one, the moment it came out of my subconscious into my conscious mind, it no longer ruled me.
Mm.
The moment I could see how it was formed and why, and it made total sense, I could see the gifts in it, but then I could see what it was costing me. I could let it go. And then I had to take actionable steps. I took 3 trips that year alone. I went to Thailand, I went to Vietnam, and I climbed Kilimanjaro all in 1 year. I ended up with adrenal fatigue, but that's a different story. And that's actually that is part of my operating system is that I overexercise. So I've had to work on bringing that down. But when I work with a client and we uncover some of the beliefs that they have, then we do action steps. Okay, what can you do this week to support your new empowered belief? So if your old outdated belief was that I'm not safe alone, my action step for the week might be, probably my first action step was I'm going to go sit in a restaurant at a bar without my phone by myself and have dinner. That's actually a really big, scary first step, by the way. I think I'd rather travel and then join like a group like Backroads where you're alone, but you're not alone, than just go to a restaurant and sit alone when that's just not something you're comfortable doing. So that's like an example. Another example would be where I would have a client who believes she'll never be chosen. Okay, so she had 2 brothers, and one brother was like a psychotic mess. And so he got all of the attention. He beat the crap out of my client. And the parents used to always say, oh, but you have to feel sorry for him. So then there was the baby, was the other brother. And so she grew up believing she would never be chosen because she never felt like the special one in her family. When we uncovered that and recognized that she was only like dating, she was bottom feeding, she was literally only dating guys that like were so beneath what she could be dating that she knew they were never going to go anywhere. And so we started out on a whole system of her dating eligible men because now she had the belief I'm worthy of being chosen. So she makes that affirmation. I give her all kinds of things, sticky things on your mirror. I help her do etching and tapping, which are 2. Your listeners can Google either one of those. Those are both great things to do to help the neural pathways change. Take the new empowering belief and like get it stuck in a new neural pathway so that you no longer are going back to that old outdated one that no longer serves you. So we do both things. We do affirmation work or mirror work or manifesting, and we also take actionable steps. Well, they do actionable steps to overcome what they were believing in for new empowering beliefs that are in alignment with where they say they want to go.
Wow. And I love that you kind of start with that with a small way, right? With getting into that, with going after the small steps of, like, you gave the example of fear of being alone or can't be alone, and then going out to a dinner and being alone and having without your phone and just doing that and starting there. And then that's the thing, is because when you do something and you're able to do it, you say, oh, wow, I could do this. And then tying back in with the fact that you can do more than that. And then when you give the next step, it's like validation of you've committed to this and you've succeeded in this. And then I also love the aspect too of the supportive piece that you kind of talk about, especially with yourself too, with when you talk about with the marriage, right? And then going to Thailand and Vietnam and then hiking Kilimanjaro and all these different things. And then being able, you live these experiences. So now that you live these experiences, you're able to kind of pass along those tools to people that you're helping out and serving through that. So something I always love to ask everyone, and you always get a different answer because everyone always has, one main thing, or it's always tied up in different kind of things. But Nancy, I would love to ask you if you can give me one thing right now that you are doing in this moment to master your mental. What would that thing be?
I am saying yes over and over and over again, because I believe that if I'm afraid to do something, I have to do it, that growth is on the other side. And unfortunately, nobody is ever in a fearless state. We all have fears. They don't go away. They're never going to go away. If our listeners are waiting to be in a fearless state to get out of your comfort zone and make a move, you're never going to get out of your comfort zone. So you have to actually have faith that the universe is working for you, not against you.
What's something you just recently said yes to that puts you out of your comfort zone?
I built a course. I was asked to build a course for Gen Connect You, which is a women's platform with all kinds of courses, educational courses for women. And when they first asked me if I wanted to do it, I said yes immediately. But then when I hung up the phone, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Can I do this? This is like, maybe they think I'm better than I am.
And you did it.
Yeah, of course. I knew I had to, because I knew that whatever this imposter syndrome belief was that was happening, my growth was on the other side. And once I did it, I was never going to think I couldn't be that person that could do that, because I just did it. So
I love it.
You got to feel the fear and go anyway. That's the lesson.
I love that. And I love that that's what you talk about. And just the fact that you did it with building that course and having, and even like, obviously you're going to have the fear no matter what. Like you give that example in the work that you do with having one of the primary things behind moving past something is fear and hesitating because you don't know what's on the other side, right? You don't know, but you push past that and did it anyway. And having that and afraid to do it, you realize that this is something that's going to make you grow. And like your comfort zone might be like this, and now it's growing because you allowed yourself to move past that point. And I absolutely love that. And I think that's such a great point that you brought up of being able to kind of step out of that. Because like you said, if you let it take over, then you're not going to move past it, and you kind of might sidestep or whatever it is, but you're not going to be able to overcome that thing that you're wanting to. Just go for it. Right. And obviously, like, rewiring the thought process of like what failure looks like, and, putting yourself out there and kind of using it as a learning experience to, you did it, you did it despite the fear. So I absolutely love that you bring that up. It's such a great point and so helpful for just everyone, doing these different things to be able to access that and jump past these things. I love it. And I just want to thank you too, honestly, just for, just kind of sharing a little bit of like the obstacles you've encountered in terms of, overcoming like being married for over 20 years, having the divorce and going and doing Kilimanjaro and then putting something together to help people overcome these limiting beliefs and set healthy boundaries and uncover what those blocks look like is such important work, because that lasts a lifetime and it can impact someone for a lifetime. So Nancy, I think that's absolutely incredible. And I'm so happy that, you got to come on and kind of share a little bit about this and kind of dive a little bit deeper into your experiences and a little bit of tips and advice. So thank you so much. And I'm so happy that you kind of got to kind of share share these things and can't wait to kind of see what's next for you and all the next steps and everything like that. So thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you. And also thank you to everyone here for tuning in and listening. I love you guys. And whether it is the daytime or the nighttime, I want to thank you guys and say bye to you guys. And also thank Nancy again, once again. So
Thank
thanks,
you.
Nancy.
Thank
You're
you.
amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. As always, if you guys would like to get in touch with me to become a guest or share your thoughts, you can do that in a number of ways. You can shoot me an email at hello@masteringmental.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at masteryourmental, where you can also find a link in my bio that you can use to find me on all of my other social media platforms. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, and thank you so much for listening to the Master Your Mental podcast. Have a good one, guys. Bye.